I love Malifaux, but I think a big barrier to entry is the phase between understanding what a crew is supposed to do thematically and actually knowing what sort of dance moves are required to start playing the strategically deep game. So in these videos, I will discuss the ways that Malifaux masters can sort of unpack their crews on turn 1. I will give you a few ways to stage your models so that you can make the hard decisions. Now let's go back to Sandeep. Before we get to TTS, the briefest summary of him is that he's a summoner. And he does this by making attack actions on enemy models. So he doesn't have to meet any target numbers like typical summoners. He actually has to go up and hit enemy models with actions to summon Gammon. And these little elemental Gammon can gum up the works and be annoying, or they can actually be used through the crew card ability that he has to turn the Gammon into giant golem. So here's the sort of standard crew I'm going to be using for this first example. I got a couple wing Gammon, a couple Shastras, Kudra, Kandara, Sandeep, Arun, and of course the totem. I've got a Vix crew set up on the other end, just for the example. Now we're going to call this first play the San Go Deep. Hopefully that's cute enough of a name. And in order to understand this play, I'm going to point to a couple of things. First of all, on Sandeep's card himself, we have this Demise ability. Now when he is killed, he can summon a golem model, which costs 10 soul stones, and base to base with him before he dies. Now this is a summon model, so it has all the downsides of that, but you're still getting a 10 stone model as sort of a consolation prize for your master dying. And once your master is dead, you do not have a leader model, so you can promote a henchman in the following turn. And Kudra, Kandara are both henchmen and love that extra AP. The other thing I want to point to is his general action, just to sort of understand what we're going to be doing when we get there. This elemental creation action summons Gammon, but this trigger is very cool. It lets you deal 2 damage for each Gammon within 10. So if you get all 3 elemental Gammon out, you're going to be doing 6 damage with this trigger once per turn. And one other thing that is important to note on Sandeep's card is that there is no way for him to move himself, which is a big downside for a master because you don't want to be taking the walk action. So I'm going to move the models around a little bit, but know that what we're going to be doing is trying to get Sandeep in a position where he does not have to take a walk action. So we want to move him up to the middle of the board, position him somewhere maybe around these strategy markers, and have him attack 3 times. And the important thing is his Demise ability allows him to be a decent little sponge, right? If all of this Vic aggression goes into my 14 health master, I'm pretty cool with that, because that means that he's not going into my Shastras or one of my more squishy Gammon, and just sort of killing my action economy in that way. So if the Sango Deep has succeeded, at the end of turn 1, 3 things will have happened. 1, Sandeep will not have taken a walk action. He would just attack 3 times. 2, all the damage will be on Sandeep. And 3, the Gammon engine is starting to chug. So when I take my activations, I'm going to be very conservative. Let's say my first activation, my Shasta just sort of goes right here. Maybe he goes to right behind this cloud, drops a ski mark or something like that. Second activation, we got another Shastra just being a little bit more conservative. He can go up to the strategy marker or maybe even just hide behind this. At some point later in the turn, my totem is going to activate and use its ability to push friendly models on probably Sandeep and Kandara. The reason I'm going to choose Kandara is because when Sandeep activates, I really want her to be within 10 inches so I can use some of her attack actions. And also the Wind Gammon can go later in the turn and push Sandeep around even further if I need him to. And I'm just going to sort of skip ahead to the important parts. Okay, so here we are in the middle of Sandeep's activation near the end of turn 1. As you can see, with the beginning of my turn, I sort of just positioned fairly conservatively. All of these paler colors are models that have already activated, and the deeper colors are models that have not activated. Near the end of the turn, Sandeep was pushed forward by this Wind Gammon. LMA put some damage into him. Vanessa put some damage into him. Got him pretty low. But during his activation, Elemental Creation this Fire Gammon off of Ella. Elemental Creation this Wind Gammon off of Vanessa. He's going to pump her for 6 damage. Kudra's already did some damage to her, so that's going to kill her. And now what might happen is Vic may activate, come over here and kill Sandeep. But we have that demise, so we're going to get a golem out of it. And this wind gambit is going to push Kudra over to this strategy and going to push Kendara over to this strategy. So we're going to get our point on the strategy. And we've absorbed the Vic Alpha in sort of the best way we can. Like, she was going to get some damage. Like, these powerful guns, they were going to do some work. It's better that we lose our master. We get the golem. We're going to promote Kudra, so she's attacking 6 times a turn, going into turn 2. And we got sort of our gammon engine going as well. And we scored strategy. So that's the saying go deep. For play 2, we're going to be running Super Solo Shastar. Now, I'm going to say Shastar, even though I looked at the pronunciation for like this typical type of Indian warrior, and it's Shastra, but it's spelled differently. It's just, you know, there's like an R here instead of an A. So maybe I'm misunderstanding something, or maybe in Malifaux they use the name Shastar for some particular reason. You can let me know in the comments. So I'm going to say Shastar for this purposes. So in order to understand what we're going to be doing with this play, you need to understand that the Shastar in itself is a very awesome little scheme runner. Cost 7, has 9 health, hard to kill. Great things in a scheme runner, but it also has the onward action, which allows you to take the walk action, which is very important in 4th edition because it lets you scale. So this is a fast model that takes perfect advantage of this upgrade that Sandeep 2 gives out. Visions in air. So after this model resolves the walk action, you can make a scheme marker within one of this model. So the Super Shastar can use their onward action, complete the walk action, drop a scheme marker, and then still interact 2 more times. So that type of combination can score you basically all the scheme points you need. In this play, we're going to lean into that. So I set up the same models, but in a flank deployment here, just to add a little variety. So I have the same Vic crew that's going to be delivering quite a punch. And we got our same Sandeep crew with 2 Wind Gammon and 2 Shastars. What we want to accomplish with this strategy is more like 2 things. 2 things that we want to see at the end of the turn. We want to see 2 things at the end of the turn. One is that our Super Solo Shastar took 0 damage. And the other thing is that we created a bit of a mess, a scramble, a scrum in the middle of the table to give that model its space to score all of our scheme. We're gonna make strategy scrappy so that schemes are clean. So impact is gonna be kind of similar. I'm gonna be using the Essence of Power to push things, Wind Gammon to push things. Be probably conservative on this flank because I don't want to take the damage from Taylor and Vanessa over here. But I'm gonna probably try and make a mess right here. And I'm gonna skip towards the inflection point at the end of this turn. Okay, so here we are further along in the turn. Basically, the Essence of Power pushed up Arun and Kendara. Kudra moved to this position to claim this strategy. She also has Butterfly Jump, so it's also a really cool defensive ability where she can move 3 inches after she's targeted with an attack action. So it's not a great model for the enemy to hard commit into turn 1. And Arun and Kendara are tanky in their own ways. Serene Countenance and with his hard to kill / heal over hard to kill ability. Both of these are pretty tanky. So basically what happened in this turn is Kendara went fairly early, summoned an Ice Gammon off of Big Jake, and then hit him with an attack action that did 3 damage because he is engaged by a Gammon. I'll show you that action right quick. Bladed Maelstrom. So left him on 1 health. At that point, the Vic needed to go and sort of clean up that Gammon before another shot came in. Kills the Gammon staggers her. She doesn't get to go very far. Again, we're gumming up the works. That's the point of this play. And, you know, she frees up LMA, so LMA is still going to go. She's going to drop some damage. Maybe get these 2 down pretty low. Maybe she goes into Kudra and tries to charge her and then kill her. Anything along those lines, but we've gummed up these works for what we're actually trying to get done, which is have Sandeep escort a Shastar. So maybe he activates and takes a walk action or something along those lines. Maybe comes to right here where he can then scale. up into this cloud where he can now see out. And maybe he does some attack actions here, but what's important is he's going to use this Sparks of Insight action to attach an elemental bind upgrade, in this case the air one, and he's going to move that Shasta 5 inches. So he'll move him 5 inches, and then what is important is we want the Shasta to be sort of our last activation, right? We want to protect them. We don't want to telegraph that this guy is so important to us for scoring our schemes. LMA's ticked off at Kandara from what she's been doing, gumming up the work, so she's going to go into her. She can't cheat, but maybe she flips well. Maybe she does a lot of damage to Kandara, gets her pretty low. But the Shasta is going to be our last activation. He's going to onward 6 inches. That's going to allow him to drop a scheme, and then maybe he'll drop 2 more schemes and score search the area by dropping 3 scheme markers within 1 inches of a piece of terrain. Leave your mark, maybe even runic binding, anything that requires a lot of markers and can be done very quickly. So that's the super solo Shastar. All right, so for play 3, I've loaded up a new strategy, a new crew to play against. We got Lucas, McCabe, Tomb Delver, more or less the same list, except for we've added Envy in the place of Kudra, and you'll see why here in a moment. And this one we're calling the Golem Gambit. The goal of this is to summon as many golems as possible on the first turn. And hopefully that will carry us through the rest of the game. So I want to point to a few important bits before we get started. Let's look at the Essence of Power. It has a very unique tactical action, which lets it instill form. So he can replace himself with a golem, but it costs 4 stones. The cost goes down every turn over the course of the game. And then we've got our ability to turn 2 Gammon into a golem. And then we're going to go to Envy, who's our new addition. Has a once per game action, target enemy leader, set this crew soulstone pool equal to the target's soulstone pool. So if you're putting those 3 pieces together, what we're going to try to do is we're going to capture the enemy leader, pull them in, stick that envy action to set our stones equal to theirs after we've dumped all of our stones into creating at least 2 golems. And that's going to be the game plan. Now with this strategy boundary disputes, we got to spend a lot of AP moving these strategy markers across the board. I'm going to skip to sort of the hinge point here in a bit. But basically what's going to happen is the Essence of Power is going to push Sandeep forward, convert himself to a 4-wins golem. So if we go to our cards here, you can see that Sandeep has this ability, Student of All, where he can declare attack actions on elemental allies as if they're printed on a stack card. And we moved our 4-wins golem up forward so that we could steal these attack actions later in the turn. So if we flip over, 4-wins golem is very good at moving enemy models. This Wind Gust ability allows you to move it enemy model 6 and target speed. Up we go. You can place it within 3 and target size. And then you could even fish for this knock aside trigger on the gun, which targets defense. So most masters have a very strong stat, but it's very unlikely that they have 3 very strong stats. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to Wind Gust Lucas, move him 6, and that's not directly towards, or that you can just move them 6 inches in any direction. So we're going to push him off the ledge, and then probably up we go him a couple times and move him around the map. All right, so here we are near the end of the turn. At some point, Despereaux moved up and threw a hook to Lucas McCabe, pulled him up on the rock. Arun kind of just moved forward. At one point, the Wind Gammon moved strategy markers and models forward, killed both of them to summon the Ice Golem. At this point, we've spent 5 Soul Stones on summoning these 2 Golem. I believe we started at 6, so we've got 1 stone left. And now it's Sandeep's activation. Lucas hasn't gone, but the goal is to get Lucas into the mess so that Envy can be the one to attack him afterwards. So after all that movement shenanigans, we've got McCabe captured. McCabe still has to activate, but he's taking a little bit of damage, and he can go into a few different targets. He can go into our Ice Golem that we just summoned, but it has a demise effect to place base to base with a ski marker, heal 5. So that's probably not the target. He can go into Sandeep, and like we said before, he's got that demise, so maybe we're even getting our 3rd Golem if Sandeep dies turn 1 again. And what we really don't want him doing is going into Envy. So we probably should position him a little bit further. If he goes into Kandara, can't cheat again, so even if he's got a fat stack of Severes. But anyway, after Lucas is done, hopefully we haven't given him too many options, and then Envy will go and drop that. What's fair is fair. We spent 5 soul stones this turn, maybe even 6, depending on what we did with Sandeep. But we're going to set our soul stone pool back to whatever Lucas has, 4, 5, whatever he's got currently. So, I mean, depending on how you do soul stone math, maybe you just gained, something like 6 to 14 stones, depending on how useful you considered summon models. But either way, that is the Golem Gambit. Okay, so that was Sandeep Desai, Font to Magic. Recently took him to a local tournament, had a lot of fun. Went 2-0-1, so 2 wins and a tie. And I had a blast the whole way. I think he's a super cool master, and hopefully this gives you the motivation, sort of the knowledge to get him on the table and give him a shot. I'm planning to do this with every master I can, possibly, so let me know which master you want me to do next. I'm currently dabbling with Arcanist, but I'm going to work my way through everything. And if you have other plays that you think are great with this master, feel free to let me know what they are. Let everyone else know what they are. Peace.